Welcome back to the Bunkhouse. I'm very proud to introduce you to a friend of mine named Bob Moorhouse, and we're going to talk about cattle and horses and ranching, and Bob has a wonderful tradition in history in ranching. And Bob, I'm so glad you joined us and took the effort to come to the Bunkhouse to spend some time with us.
Red, I'll do anything for you.
Well, that's awfully kind of you. Let's talk about a ranch that you were the 6th manager of. It's called the Pitchfork Ranch, and it's out in Dickens in King County, isn't it? And tell us a little bit about the ranch and how you got to be there.
Well, it's partly in Dickens County, partly in King County. Well, I graduated from school, and Jim Humphreys, I graduated from Texas Tech. Jim Humphreys was manager, and my dad was commissioner in King County, Guthrie, and one of the employees at Pitchforks was a commissioner. And they got to visiting, took my dad, said, Bob's out of school, looking for a job, or maybe he's coming home, they didn't know. So Jim Humphreys, they heard this, and he came up to Lubbock and interviewed me, and I went to Pitchforks, and that was about 36 years ago, and they hired me and went there, and I had 2 daughters after we got there. Amy was born, Linda was pregnant with Amy when we went there. And I had a great 35 years with the historic Pitchfork Ranch.
Tell us a little bit about the history of the ranch, because it's one of those ranches that's still intact with the same family.
It's still intact, incorporated in 1883, and about 170,000 acres. We had a ranch in Wyoming, and one in Kansas, and we've sold one in Wyoming, and we've got one now in Oklahoma. That's part of the Pitchforks, of course, not joined. The ranch at Pitchforks at Guthrie is contiguous.
Right.
And about 113 windmills are converting some of them over to solar. Very traditional. We use the wagon, big remuda, and the cowboys there, they liked the way we worked. We worked just basically like you would 100 years ago, but we, of course, had a board of directors, and we watched their bottom line. So. Yeah, they like tradition and pulling the wagon out, and it's a great place to work. Not only a big ranch, but it's historic and a great family to work for.
And how did that family get in the ranching business? Did they have ranching interests already when they bought the Pitchfork, or were they simply investors?
No, they were investors, and it's a long story. Mr. Gardner, he was manager, owned and managed the ranch for a large number of years, and he called one of the Williams from St. Louis, and he said he'd found this ranch. He was a surveyor in that area, and of course that's 1883 or before. And Mr. Williams said he started down there on the train and from St. Louis, and I think the story goes he got sick and had to turn around and go back and just wired Mr. Gardner and said, anything you want to do, I'm a partner.
Had a lot of faith in you, didn't he?
He had a lot of faith in him. But that's basically the way the Williams family are.
Yeah. Well, now, Bob, since 1883, there have been a lot of changes in the ranching industry. And in the 35 years that you were there, you had to see some drastic changes, because it went from being just a way of life and just surviving to a business, and we have to treat it that way today.
That's true, Red. I saw a lot of changes, and I made some drastic changes, and of course Ron Lane has taken over since I retired, and I told him, you know, you don't, just because I did it this way, that's not the way to do it necessarily. You need to make some changes too, and he has, and you know, I'll support everything he changes. Yeah, we did. We had the chuck wagon, and all the, as I keep repeating, all of the cowboys were real traditional, you know, but sometime we got in a bind on those big rough pastures, and we'd have to get a helicopter to come in. Kind of looked funny, the wagon sitting over here and the helicopter sitting beside it. But, and I didn't, you know, that was one thing that I kind of vowed not to use the helicopter less, and we did. And of course I was young and tough, and I thought, man, we can work this sucker with just horseback and good cowboys, but you just can't hardly do it. And anytime we pretty well worked with the helicopter, it's not the helicopter that came in.
Yeah.
And of course, then here comes a computer, and things drastically changed in the office from St. Louis, from our office to St. Louis office. But it is a very historic very respected, and basically I think that's one thing. It's the cowboys and the good cowboys we had, and the family that owns the ranch.
Right. And you had a good background in ranching before you went there. You not only had an education at Texas Tech, but you had a family that had been in the ranching business for quite some time.
Yeah, Red, I was raised Moorhouse Ranch, which it was also in King County. It joined the 460s on the east side. Pitchfork joined the 460s on the west side. So actually, after going to school, I didn't, the school was a distance. I started at Sullivan Ross University in Alpine and transferred to Tech and graduated from Tech. And went from Tech to Pitchfork and moved from Pitchforks. Since I retired to Weatherford.
And you're one of the great photographers of all time, Bob Moorhouse. I want to tell you that, and I want the world to know that. But the pictures that you have taken of working cowboys and things that you saw will live forever. And are you continuing your a career as a photographer, or is that still just a hobby?
I don't know if I'd call myself a photographer. It's basically a hobby of mine, a paying hobby, and I gave a slideshow, or you don't call them slides anymore, a pinpoint, or not a pinpoint, was, anyway.
I know what you're talking about, to do it with a computer.
Yeah, that's it. Done at Alpine a couple of weeks ago, and then the next morning I was supposed to take 10 people out to Coconuts, and Chris Lacey, and man, the grama grass is this tall out there, and man, those mountains are pretty. And they, they're real cowboys, had the wagon out. And I don't like to do that type of thing. I don't mind showing my work, which I enjoy, which I'm proud of, because it is the real cowboy and everything. I don't have anything in it that I don't want, and that's without the new PowerPoint stuff. But I kind of lost what I was saying. But it's not a. I didn't feel good about doing the photo shoot, because I feel like I am a photographer. But there was people there that actually knew more about a camera than I did, that I was supposed to be teaching. And I mean, basically knew more about the buttons and everything. But to me, knowing about the buttons is not a photographer. A photographer is the one that can actually get the shot. And some people, I've seen them come out to the ranch with a Suburban full of camera equipment and think, why can't I take photographs like you? And I said, well, one thing, you're just here for a few days, and I'm here for every day, and I know what's fixing to happen. And I'm with the cowboys, carry a big camera behind my saddle a lot of times. And so I don't know if I would, I've been introduced as a photographer, and I say, no, you introduced me to this Teddy Robinson. He's a well-known horseman. Don't introduce me as a photographer, introduced me as a horseman, So here he is down at Alpine. I look at the agenda there, Bob Moorhouse. It's wine manager, photographer, Bob Moorhouse, cowboy. And that's kind of the way I liked it. I feel like I'm just a cowboy that was in the right place to be able to take photographs and could see the light that I wanted to see. And I really don't think some people can see the light.
Well, I think you're a great cowboy and a great photographer. And
well,
I'm so proud that you came by and spent time with us, Bob. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you.
Can't wait for a ranch rodeo at Red Steagall's.
We're about ready.